Well, it's very exciting to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you a little bit about the speed of change in today's work environment, and Jacek set me up perfectly because I think you're going to hear some similar themes. In fact, I think we all like the speed of change, but I don't think we like it very much when it starts to impact the workforce, and all of a sudden it becomes extremely difficult for us to engage the talent and attract the talent that we need to be successful. In fact, this is my first time to Warsaw, and I can't believe the level of growth. And when I talk to the teams here and how things have changed, particularly in the last 30 years, I can't imagine what you're all dealing with as you continue this change and all of this growth. But let me see if I can give you just a few helpful hints to help you get through this. In 2016, Charles Schwab actually predicted that the greatest societal concern that we have as we roll into the fourth industrial revolution is basically the lack of skills and the lack of ability to interpret the data, right? We don't all have to be data scientists, but we have to be able to interpret that data. And so the skill set's changing for us dramatically, and actually there are people that predict that we're going to be left in an environment where the high-skilled workers and people who can, strategically leverage the data are left, are there with the high pay, and then the rest of the workforce is left behind. And in fact, more and more people are getting extremely concerned about this. And so my guess is all of you in the audience today, whether you're a business leader, a CEO, or an HR leader, you're trying to figure out how to deal with this situation and what is it exactly that you're going to do to overcome them. We know many of the transactional jobs or the lower value jobs are really being taken over by technology. Jacek talked about that earlier. And more than half of your candidate pools today, by the way, believe the jobs that they're applying for are going to go away. They also believe that you, as employers, are not doing enough to help them. You're not doing enough to upskill them, and you're not doing enough to help them get ready for the next job. The other thing is we're seeing an environment where how we work is changing. So whether you're now working from home or I don't know about you, I've been on the road for 2 weeks living out of one little suitcase, and I didn't bring my laptop. I've literally been working off of my phone for the last 2 weeks, and that actually worked out far better than I could imagine. But we're working in a WhatsApp culture, right? I have one customer who is working in a no boss culture. I'm sure my boss would love that one. So, the way we work is changing. Technology is changing the way we work. And the skills and the job titles and the types of jobs that are being created are changing. So by 2030, basically the prediction is 85% of the jobs haven't even been invented yet. And whether or not you believe that that's true, many of the jobs that we have today haven't even been around in the previous decade. So we're definitely in for change. And think about it, if you can see some of the job titles that are up there, you think to yourself, well, why would we ever need a space nurse? But we're already selling rides for $1 million to space, and somebody has to treat people when they're on there. So that's a job title that's not too far away from our reality. So the niche skills are going to become more and more important. We just heard that in the previous presentation as well, right? And so how will we prepare our workforce? And I'll talk a little bit about this. Yesterday, I was on this stage as part of a panel, or not a panel, as part of a debate panel, actually, with some of my colleagues over there. And there's a debate over who actually won. But what we talked about was, our female organizations or female-led organizations, are they more profitable? And at the end of the day, we all agreed that it's really a diverse workforce and a diverse leadership organization that at the end of the day makes you more profitable. But this change with AI and robotics, the first people impacted by that are going to be the female workforce. More than half of those jobs today, they're held by women. They're the lower paying jobs, and they're held by women. So in an environment and in an economy we know we need to promote female leadership if we're going to have more cross-cultural organizations, if we're going to have more profitable companies, if we're going to have a more engaged workforce, we need to be able to work towards reskilling our female population who are in these lower transactional jobs. They will be the first ones impacted. So the other thing that I think we'll start to see happen is the way the job titles or the job requirements change. And I think, if you thought about some of these and you talked about some of these with your HR leaders, 10 years ago, process skills, social skills, those are things that you see on a regular basis. But what you're starting to see is what's your experience around emotional intelligence, active listening. These are things that we're seeing in job descriptions today. In fact, if many of you are still writing traditional job descriptions, you're going to have a tough time recruiting the kind of more professional talent that you need, because frankly, all of the skills we need in today's environment don't exist. You have to find the experiences and the attributes, some of what are listed here, in order to power your job description of the future. I think one of the most interesting things that I'll talk about today is the fact by 2050, more than a quarter of the population, maybe with the exception of Africa, is going to actually be over 60. So for the first time, we're going to have 5 generations in one workforce. 5 generations in one workforce. So where you think your grandparents are retired, that's not actually the case. So I would ask all of you, how prepared are you to have 5 generations in your workforce? The difference between a traditionalist, which someone in the workforce born after 1946, right? And then the Gen Z that is born after 1995. These individuals are sitting side by side, and yet you're going to engage the workforce. Now, I think this is really good news. It sounds like it's going to be hard to manage through, but it's actually really good news, because think about the diversity that you get as a result of that and the different attributes that come with that kind of workforce, right? So you're talking about a loyal workforce, if you're thinking about the traditionalists, but then you think about a Gen Z, and they're adapted to technology. What's the other thing we know about that last generation, and that's that they're wanting to work face to face, right? So now all of a sudden you can see where those two things are starting to meet again, because the ones in the middle, the generations in the middle, want to work from home. So really, what and how do you take advantage of that? The traditional education work, retirement, it's a multi-stage circle. I will have multiple careers in my lifetime. My granddaughter will have multiple jobs at one time, right? And that's going to be okay. My father had one job. Right, and that's the difference here. So traditional retirement, those types of things, I don't think will happen. You'll be lifelong learners. We'll have lifelong learners. So what can you do to stay ahead? I think it's very important to determine how people want to work. It's not always about filling the job. Now, I work for a staffing company, the largest staffing company in the world, actually, and we're all about filling jobs. But even we have to talk about to our customers how to get the work done. So sometimes it's looking at technology, looking at automation, looking at completing a project. What kind of talent do you need to get that done? Can you just hire somebody to get the project done rather than hire a traditional full-time worker? Not only will you need to do that in order to get the work completed, but that's the way the population at large and the talent at large is going to want to get the work done. So in terms of skills transformation and the impact on the workplace, I think you should ask yourselves now, what are you doing to reskill your population and your workforce? Filling the jobs, it's not, I just heard, where you guys are at, where Poland and Warsaw in particular is at economically. I heard there's 2% unemployment in Warsaw. If you think you're going to fill all the jobs that are out there, that's probably not going to be the case. So really the future is going to be about reskilling your workforce, having an understanding of what you're going to need, and rethinking, right, that traditional worker. You no longer need to worry about, well, they don't know how to program this type of code, right, so I can't put them in that job. They'll leave you because the next person's going to train them on the next line of code. So I'd ask yourselves today, when you leave here, what have you done to really assess your workforce and assess your talent, and how will you prepare for the future? Not just automation, not just technology, but really for a multi-generational workforce. And I got 30 seconds left, a few things here. So as I mentioned, I work for Randstad. One of the things that we have done is put together our own online sort of cross-cultural site. It's kind of sort of our own Facebook, if you will. This has really helped us cross boundaries and really helped us with the cross-cultural engagement. It's really driven workforce up quite a bit, or engagement up quite a bit. The last couple of points is we also have a mission to touch 500 million lives. So in order to have an engaged workforce, people want a purpose, and we're really proud of that. And then last, our Randstad at Heart is our social platform, and where we allow people to give back hours and engage in the community. So I'll leave you with one last thought, right? In today's environment, it really starts with all of you, and I would ask all of you to help lead the change. Thank you.